Hello readers and writers, I'm MJ and this is the mid-year book freakout tag. I know, it's August, I'm late, that's okay. Y'all know, everything's been going wild around here, so much has been going on, and so there's no way I could have gotten this video filmed before now, so now it is. So let's go ahead and let's do this mid-year book freakout tag. So the first question is, what is the best book you've read so far in 2024? And for this one, I don't know if I actually have a favorite book of the year, but looking through what I've read, I will say one of the most impactful books I've read this year is True Biz. This is a book with deaf representation. It is about a boarding school for deaf students, and talks a lot about deaf culture and being deaf in a hearing world and through the eyes of teenagers. And I am not deaf. I did take ASL in high school and college because my grandmother's parents were both deaf. And so when I was young, she would teach me sign language. And so I think that's kind of always stayed with me, but I am not connected to the culture in any way, shape, or form. And so reading this book, it just was very well written and very well presented, but very impactful as well. I will say hands down, we do not see enough deaf representation in books. I've read 2 this year, and they may be the only 2 that I may have ever read. So I definitely need to seek more out, but more need to be published. So if you have any recommendations for deaf authors and deaf representation, please put them down in the comments below. So the next question is the best sequel that you've read so far in 2024. All right, so this is going to be The Tombs of Atuna by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is book number 2 in the Earthsea cycle. I'm trying to read through all of Ursula K. Le Guin's books. Well, her Hainish cycle series and the Earthsea cycle series this year. And a lot of the books aren't resonating with me. They seem like they're trying to emulate male fantasy, very alpha male fantasy. But the book 2 of the Earthsea cycle went against the grain of that, and it had a female main character. It was fantastic. I think more of Ursula K. Le Guin's books will start pushing back a little bit more on this traditional fantasy that was being published at the time, and I can't wait for that because this book was great. And I think when you hear of the Earthsea cycle being a phenomenal book, it's definitely past the first book that this starts to happen. I've only made it to the 3rd. I didn't think the 3rd was as good as the 2nd, but I'm hoping as I keep moving on that it will get better. Although I also have heard that the 2nd book is actually the best in the series, so we'll see. All right, what is a new release that I haven't read yet, but I want to? Great question. Honestly, I don't really have an answer for this one. I feel like I've been very disconnected from new releases, except for the ones I've read. And there's not anything that I'm hugely anticipating that I haven't read yet. So maybe I'm missing something. It just seems like for science fiction, there's nothing that's non-series related that has really captured my attention. And that partly could be just because I've been so focused on like the move and everything that I haven't been that connected. And this kind of goes for the next question as well. The most anticipated release for the second half of 2024 is I don't have one. I haven't made release videos this year. I haven't been staying very current with it. Most of the newest releases I've got because I've seen they've been publishing out in the library or because the publishers have sent them to me. But I just haven't been very good at being current this year. And that's okay. Sometimes you just have to accept that. I love staying on top of new release books. I love books. But this is just not the year for that for me. And again, that's okay. Biggest disappointment of the year. Okay, so this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but my biggest disappointment is Fire Becomes Her. And this is because Fire Becomes Her is one of the biggest asexual representations, aromantic representation books that if you ask for like Aro Ace books, Fire Becomes Her is one of those books that get recommended. And it was a huge disappointment for me. One, it's extremely YA, and as a 40 plus year old person, I'm not YA. I don't connect with YA anymore. I don't need to connect with YA. If other 40-year-old peoples do, that's great, but I personally do not. The representation did not come into the book until like the latter half. It almost seems like the book was split into two, where you have like the steampunk fantasy romance going on, and then all of a sudden you get like queer rep in the second half, and it was just very weirdly pieced together, like almost two separate projects, and I just was a huge disappointment for me. I don't know why it couldn't have been reworked in this first part, or like why it's split in the middle like that, but yeah, it was definitely my biggest disappointment for the year because I wanted to love it. And what was my biggest surprise? I feel like this could go a lot of ways, but this is the way I'm going to take it. For 2024, I told my kid that any book they read, I would read. And so that started them reading all their manga. So then I had to read all their manga. But it's so worth it because after this, they started reading a whole bunch of webcomics, and just seeing them reading all the time now is phenomenal. And I do not have to read the webcomics, thankfully. But not that there aren't amazing webcomics. That's not a format that I personally find appealing, but they love, and I think it's fantastic. But as part of this, one of their favorite anime series is My Hero Academia. And so, I will not say I love My Hero Academia. We have had a lot of conversations about what I find problematic about the manga with my kid. But having conversations is great. Critical thinking skills and fantastic. Why I'm putting this as my most surprising read is because now, as this next and final season of My Hero Academia is coming out, they're telling me about it, and I am understanding what they're saying. So by reading, what I do, like the first 5 or something volumes of My Hero Academia, I'm now able to understand at least the core part of the world enough to be like, yeah, no, I know who you're talking about. I know what that event was, and have conversations with them about it. So I will not say it's my favorite reading experience, but it has helped me connect to my kid more. And so that is great. And it's surprising for me to realize I have some of that knowledge. And a new favorite author. So I think this is going to go to Lillian Zensky. They are an indie author who published their debut novel this year, Sparks and Tethers. This is a political science fiction novel, and they're a phenomenal human being, but also a phenomenal writer. Not that those two things need to be separated, but they're definitely an author that I will continue to follow. A lot of my favorite authors recently have been indie authors. A lot of my favorite books have been indie books. I think that's phenomenal. 8th question is your newest fictional crush. I will never have an answer for this because I do not have fictional crushes. I think I fake something every year. I don't know if I'm up for faking something this year. I know one year I said Rocky and Hail Mary, I think, because not a crush, but still my favorite fictional character. Is there one? No, I got nothing for this. Alright, newest favorite character. I guess I will say in Junker 7, one of the main characters is Castor, and I probably relate to them being a non-binary autistic person most of any characters I've read. So I guess that they are my answer. Book that made you cry. Nothing. I don't think any of the books I've read so far this year have made me cry. Yeah. It's not been a very emotional reading year for me. Books that made you happy. Well, Junker 7 made me happy because I really liked the world. Here's a fun one. There's this manga that I read because, again, of my kid. And it's Creepy Cat Volume 1. And it was hilarious. It was funny. And it's very limited words, very visual. And not necessarily something I would typically write, but I would totally read the rest of the series. It was so much fun. Looking through this, I've realized how much manga I've read and how little prose books I've read this year. No wonder I'm having a lot more problems answering these questions. Favorite book to movie adaptation you've seen so far this year? Wow. I mean, this has really not been my year. I'm not sure I've seen a single book to movie adaptation this year. So not movie adaptation, but TV adaptation. Dark Matter is on Apple TV. I love the book Dark Matter. Blake Crouch, I love some of his books, not all of them. But the TV adaptation is, I still like the book better. But I've enjoyed the TV adaptation. I actually need to finish it. So I've seen that. The only one I can remember seeing. And lastly, what books do I need to read by the end of the year? I had 2 reading goals for this year. One is to read 24 indie books written in 2024. And I need to read a fair bit more of those. So I have so many that I want to pick up. So that is not going to be a challenge finding ones to read. It's just determining which ones are going to be put on my TBR. But definitely focusing on a lot of indie authors. And then really was supposed to focus on Ursula K. Le Guin this year. And I really have slacked off on that. So I really do want to get through these early books that she's published, because I really do think I'm going to enjoy the later books. So really just focusing on that as well. And that's really all I've got for books that I have to read in 2024 for this last half of the month. Beyond that, it's just whatever I have. And I'm not going to stress about it too much. This was a very transitionary year for me, and we have them, and that is not only okay, it's actually great, because I have been looking forward to this transitionary year for a long time. I moved to California for various reasons that have no longer held true for quite a few years. And it was very difficult for me to get out of California. And that's nothing on California. There's so much great about it, and I understand why people love it and want to stay. And there's things I'm missing about it. But it was not a place I wanted to permanently make home. And so to be able to transition out of that is great for me, for a lot of reasons, one of which is just financially. The transitions that my kid has had and being able to support them through it is also fantastic. Maybe this isn't the best reading year I've had so far, or at least the first part, but it's worth it. So that's okay. So please tell me down in the comments your answers if you have done this tag. Let me know. I am tagging everyone who has not done it yet and is interested in doing it before the year gets even further on and we're doing the end of the year tags. So, as always, keep reading and keep writing, and until next time.